when you understand that, all of a sudden you're like, it's nothing more than fear. And all I have to do is inhale, calm, and trust. Exhale my fear. I'm centered and I'm calm. All is well. I can handle things. And I found that I could actually manage those triggers.
Welcome to the Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. My new best friend, Tracy, is here with me. And this is going to be fun. You know, have you ever had those moments when you're walking through and you're having just the most excellent, beautiful day, and all of a sudden, bam, George walks by, or you hear a song, or something just triggers, and all of a sudden the day is crappy. Tracy's going to teach us a tool to turn that right back into one of those glorious days again. How do we switch back? If we can switch off so quickly, we can also switch back. And there's no reason to live in that grungy day for the rest of the day. So Tracy's going to help us with that. And I am so excited. When we come back, Tracy, help me find that switch to turn back on a beautiful day. We'll be right back.
This is Adam Adams, co-founder of Optimized LLC, where we take the guesswork out of your health. If you're feeling exhausted, struggling with weight, or just not feeling yourself anymore, your hormones might be the problem. And that's why we test, not guess. Analyzing your blood work to pinpoint exactly what's holding you back. At Optimized LLC, we help you rebalance your hormones, boost energy, and reclaim your life. Don't settle for normal. Aim for optimized. Just go to optimize.com to book your free introductory coaching call. It's a free call to help you take the first step toward feeling your best.
Okay. I'm excited because I love switches. Just help me find that switch, because I've had plenty of those days when on an instant it has gone from happy-go-lucky, everything is perfect, to why am I even here?
Mm-hmm.
So help me.
Yep. Well, I'm going to speak to burnout. Is that okay?
Yes,
That's where I was.
that is the same thing.
Yep.
Because
Okay.
I think those switches, some of it's just, I just don't have the energy to keep going. And now you just took more energy from me. So talk to us about burnout.
Yeah. So, to turn that switch back on, I had to actually unpack a lot of things, Laura Jane. Let me just start with what most people know about me is that, I was the woman who managed it all, right? I was, a successful CEO, managing a business. I had family responsibilities and building my relationship, buying a home, doing everything. I had custody of my sister's kids. And what I found was that I was just that person who grew up who thought that she had to sacrifice herself for her job, for my family, for my relationship. And that sacrifice took me on a journey. And so I couldn't understand these reactions at first, because what was happening is I felt overwhelmed. I felt stress. Next thing I knew, I felt conflict. I felt like no one understood me. No matter what I said, it was like, can't they hear what I just said? Why won't they do what I just asked? But as I went on this journey and I went deeper into it, what I started to find was it got to a breaking point, and I can remember that breaking point like it was yesterday. It was a cold winter's day. It was December 21st. It was around the holidays. As I'm getting ready for work, I get a glimpse of myself in the mirror and my eyes are hollow. My spirit was just dim, and as I looked at myself, I didn't even recognize myself anymore because I just looked so empty, and inside my head, I'm like, I'm done, and the rant starts. I'm done. I'm done taking care of my mom. My mom is mentally ill. Done being stretched in every single direction at work. I'm done being the fixer. I'm done taking care of my sister's kids, And then next thing I started really ruminating on was maybe if I get good and drunk around the holiday, like maybe I'd crash the car. And if I crashed the car, no one would know I did it on purpose. Fast forward later that night, I had gone through with it. And I was jolted awake by someone knocking on my car window saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, what happened? What have I done? And then the meltdown happened. How did I get so lost? And that next day, I was walking to a school meeting for my niece, and it was like my head and my heart were arguing with each other. My head was critical. It was like, Tracy, how could you do that? Almost killed two people on top of almost killing myself. And then my heart kept saying, but Tracy, you're still here. So that moment was really my first moment where I just realized I want to live again. And I mean, I called out, like, I want to live again as I'm walking to school. And I realized as I was walking, that moment taught me my first real lesson that self sacrifice is not about abandoning myself. It's about putting myself first while I'm managing it all. And for me at that time, it meant getting help. But over the course of what felt like 10 years, I had to unpack a lot of things because what I found as I was getting help was it was isolated, right? I worked on trauma and I got treated for depression because I had those thoughts. But I kept finding those triggers kept coming back. I kept finding that like I would have reactions that I was ashamed of, So what I realized over this healing journey was that it wasn't my mom, it wasn't my job, it wasn't my family, it wasn't my spouse that was actually creating all this break in me and these breakdowns and meltdowns. It wasn't that. It was my own beliefs
Yeah.
that were doing it. And it was shaped by early life experiences that really just drove me. And what I realized though was that I always felt like I didn't belong. And so doing everything, being that human doer, basically meant that I did, right? So when I learned how to reshape what shaped me, I started to find my way back to myself, to my life, to my voice and expressing my needs, and back to the people that I loved because this burnout, these triggers actually kept me in conflict because I was the one pushing people away and I didn't even realize it. So
Okay.
that journey taught me so much. And what I learned was the reshaping took some work. I actually call it the reaction cascade because I'm visual and I had to break it all down. Like, what is driving me? Like, what is making this happen? And I had a friend who I was finally getting vulnerable, right? That was the first thing I had to do was really let people know where I was at and what happened. And so I'm reading all these self-help books, and I read that fear drives us to negative emotions. So I'm like, okay, I need help for fear. So I started telling my friend about it. She was a trainer in the same industry I was in. And she goes, she was in a 12-step program. And she said, yeah, fear drives everything. It turns us, it turns our thinking into, we're self-centered and we're like locked drum tight. And I'm like, what? So she goes, I have this tool. So she shows me this tool. I studied psychology when I was younger, going to college. I grew up in poverty and put myself through school, but I couldn't afford my advanced degree. So basically, when she showed me this tool, what I saw was this tool that showed me something I had learned when I was studying, which was that anytime we're wounded, and I don't mean significant trauma, anytime that we've had an experience that feels traumatic to us. It's upsetting, we're hurt, and it's a wound. We store it, right? And basically it stunts us a bit. And Abraham Maslow was the guy that I studied. And he talked about anytime our needs are stunted, what happens? It keeps us living in this place of lack and discontent. So we're looking at life through a straw. All we see is what we don't have. All we see is what no one does for us, and we're stuck. But then the other thing I saw with it was I loved Carl Jung and I never understood it then, but he would always talk about when you can make conscious what was unconscious, you can change. And all of a sudden I saw the way that this tool was laid out, it was telling you like where were you self-centered? And I'm like, how dare you call me self-centered? I'm selfless. I do everything for everybody, how dare you? But I started looking up the traits, right? So things like self-reliance, which is a self-centered trait. I'm absorbed with doing everything myself. Things like self-pity. I'm absorbed with feeling sorry for myself because I got to do it all myself is how I was. Things like self-avoidance, right? It's another self-centered trait where I would just avoid you and I didn't want to deal, especially if I did something and you got upset with me. I was like, that's it, I'm not talking to you anymore. So when I started to see these traits, I realized if we can see them, then we can name them, then we learn how to shift them. And so that really led me to creating a practical tool for myself that I call the turnaround so that I could put into practice mindfulness that really worked for me. So that's what I learned. And that's what I do today. And I recently wrote a book about it. And I lay out the pathway that I learned because it helped me shift a lot of negative things. And what I mean by that is things like having grown up feeling like I never belonged. My mom had me as a teenager. She was mentally ill. And I had some experiences that wounded me. And anytime I felt like either you rejected me or you didn't like me, or I would have these perceptions over here that, uh-oh, you're trying to shut me out. You don't think I belong. It would trigger a limiting belief, which would be, uh-oh, I'm not good enough. And then I realized it triggered a fear, uh-oh, I'm never going to belong, which then triggered those traits. And when
Mhm.
I learned how to unpack that, and I look at it as a little map. Like when you understand that, all of a sudden you're like, it's nothing more than fear. And all I have to do is inhale, calm, and trust. Exhale my fear. I'm centered and I'm calm. All is well. I can handle things. And I found that I could actually manage those triggers at a much, much more effective level than I could before. So
Yeah.
that,
What a great story because I'm sure most of us have those moments where it's like, where's the time for me? And you are being everybody's hero. You are doing it. And subconsciously, the reason I gave so much is I wanted to be needed.
yes,
And guess what? That's self-centeredness. Needing to be needed is being self-centered. And when you can finally go, "Oh, taking care of self is not self-centered, that's giving me the energy." That would be like your car being self-centered for needing gas. No, it
exactly.
needs gas to go.
Exactly.
You need gas to go. We all need that thing to keep going. And the more burned out you are, at least in my experience, the faster and the more extreme those triggers do. You can go from almost, I know not clinically bipolar, but those instant from happy to angry.
Yes.
But the more we fill up, that narrows. You don't go so sad.
Yeah.
You're more happy. I call them my robot years. There was no soul driving this thing other than sheer task list.
Yes. I mean, I called myself a human doing. I did not know how to be because I was just do and do and do and do. And then it was stew and stew and stew and stew because I'd be angry and frustrated and then everything irritated me. And then I felt numb. I
Yeah.
felt so disconnected from myself and from others. And then I was just completely exhausted. But what I learned in my experience was that when I was having those meltdowns, I would feel ashamed, right? But when I learned how to recognize that that was nothing more than a signal, it was really just my brain, my body, my nervous system warning, warning, like, you got to take care of yourself. And so after I would have one, I would want to go into another self centered trait is self deprecation and condemnation, which is I'm beating myself up. You're a horrible person and you're so bad. And I'd condemn, how could you? But when I realized I had to break through that, what are you not focusing on, Tracy? And usually it was me. And the whole narrative in my mind was, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I wasn't willing to give myself permission to put me first. And in the absence of that willingness, I just kept doing and doing and doing, doing to the point of break. And you heard how far that break took me. But as I started to recover from my burnout, I still found that if I avoided myself, those reactions and trigger, those things came up. And so
Yeah.
to me, it's so important that we recognize that it's really deep within us that's driving it. And it always brings me to a story. I remember I was a senior director and sitting in my boss's office, I'm sobbing hysterically, like I can't handle one more responsibility and have this at home and I have that. And he sat there and he listened and he's nodding. And then he leans in and he said, "It doesn't matter what I do for you. You are wired to give 110%. And until you change that, it won't change." Now I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You want to blame me for this?" And in hindsight, I had burned out. It was probably a couple years after that conversation is when I had that big episode I talked about, which became my turning point. But he was right, and I realized I kept thinking I had to go above and beyond for everyone to fit in and to belong and to be needed, as you said.
Oh, that wisdom, how blessed you were to have someone actually articulate that to you. But like I didn't get that from anything other than all my self-help books.
Yes.
It's like that wisdom of this is how you've wired yourself because it is our own personal
Mhm.
wiring
Mhm.
that until you do that, you're going to always be burnt out. And you're like,
Mhm.
no, I just have too much. And it's like, I don't have time. I don't have the priority to take care
Mhm.
of myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
You have the time. And if you I talk to it like, "Oh, I'm gonna just fill up and put a dime in my car so that I can keep going." And you end up having to stop at every gas station because you tried to shorten the stop
Mhm.
process.
Mhm.
It's gonna take you longer. It's the
Exactly.
sharpen your saw theory from Stephen Covey. Take the breaks, sharpen your saw so that
Mhm.
you can be effective in the doing moments. We all get the opportunity to do, but we have to be able to be.
Exactly. And we're all human and we're all gonna have emotional setbacks. That doesn't mean we're ever gonna be perfect. What I learned is, and I used to think like, okay, I can never do this again. I can never let a trigger me like that again. And the truth is that they come back. And what I found is that especially for me, I'm like book smart. Like I have to read everything. I want to know how to fix it. So I took that time, and what it kept telling me was I had to learn how to change my outlook. I had to learn how to change my perspective. And then I'd sit there and I'd have the self-help book in front of me and I go, "How? How do I do that?" Right? And so what I found was I thought it was a lot of work. That's honestly what I have found for me in terms of being willing to do the things to help me shift my perspective. I had to break through my own resistance because I had all these ideas of, "Oh, that's going to take too long. I don't have time for that." Like you said, I was not willing to prioritize myself. But when I did, it took some work. The first part of it takes a few hours of time. And when you take those few hours and you look at how your life experiences shaped you and you see those traits, then you're like, "Oh, now I have something I can change." And then what does life become? Well, what it became for me was I call it a 5-minute look back. How did I do today with that? Did I melt down? Did I react? Do I owe anyone an apology? Did I do something that I'm not happy about? Right. And then I can set my intention for how I want to release some of the things that came up. So for me, sometimes it would be I didn't recognize how my self-reliance affected other people. What's the message I was delivering, especially as a CEO?
I'm
If
too good. Without me, you guys make nothing.
you're not good enough, telling you you're not good enough and I don't trust you. And I couldn't understand why people then just withdrew and wouldn't help. Well, I created that, right? So I would find that if I had a self reliance day, as I would call it, or a self reliant day, I would end my day by going, okay, before I went to bed, I'm releasing self reliance and I'm opening myself and embracing challenges as opportunities. And I'm asking for and accepting help. And then the next morning, 5-minute reset. What's my intention for the day? I'm open and receptive, to today's challenges as opportunities, and I am asking for and accepting help. And, as we know, we start with intentions and we feel good as we start our day. Then we get to work or the kids are coming at us, right? And that's where I had to learn 1-minute resets, right? Which
Mhm.
is for me, it's just I'm centered, I breathe in, I'm centered and I'm calm and I'm relieving my stress and frustration. I'm handling it. 1-minute reset. And those 1-minute resets could be 15 times in an hour, but it's what keeps me doing it and keeps me in a place where I'm not letting a trigger me to the point of doing something that I regret or doing something that I feel ashamed of. And if I do have a setback, which I do, I'm not going to say I'm perfect because no one is. And learning how to acknowledge that was another thing that I had to learn how to do, which is the way I just said that was unfair or that sarcastic comment was uncalled for. I say things like that where I acknowledge what I did or said so that I can quickly build that connection again rather than creating that disconnect that I would often feel.
I do that same thing. It's like as soon as my internal soul goes, "Hey, that was wrong."
Mhm,
So I say, "I am responsible for how I deliver the message.
mhm,
You are responsible for how you receive it." Now, if
mhm,
I have delivered it with a little bit of, "I hope you hurt. I hope this hurt," because then when I'm hurting inside, I want the world to hurt too.
mhm.
So, "Oh, that was not intended that way. I really appreciate what you're doing." And just the sooner you do it, the less pain it causes the other person too. And the sooner you do it to yourself, as soon as you can hear that inner bully going, "Rah, rah, rah, rah," I understand. I am safe. Use the I am safe because
Mhm,
that's where my pain comes from,
mhm,
is
mhm,
feeling the lack of safety.
mhm,
And we all have that. What is it? What
mhm.
is that thing that you need to, I am centered. I can handle this.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
I am
centered.
safe. I can keep going. I can keep whatever those words are for you. Try on all of them. There's so many affirmations out there that you can just look
Well,
at.
yeah,
Uh,
and when you create your own and you find your own, it really like mine is I am worthy as I am and I belong right here.
yeah.
Especially when I have that trigger. And when I do, I can go right in the moment.
Yes. And people always say, put your own mask on first. How many of us had that example when we're growing up of women or men or colleagues, friends that took care of themselves first? We were
Mhm,
all so raised to put ourselves last, do everything else, because what keeps you in the tribe is by helping everybody else succeed,
mhm,
not take care of yourself so that everybody else succeeds. And
mhm,
those examples that we grew up with didn't teach us how to fill up our own cup first.
mhm,
And I always use that example of the mask first. Imagine being a kid sitting in an airplane with these things falling out of the sky and hearing everybody go, and then someone shoving it in your face.
mhm,
Oh, the fear, the what's going on. But if you saw every adult in the place put that over their heads and then came to you to put it on yours, you would go, this is what's supposed to happen.
mhm,
By being that example of putting yourself first, we can make it easier for others. And that is not selfish. That is preservation for all people because without you, there is no life.
I couldn't agree more. I always say to everyone that I talk to is that we're all CEOs of our own lives, right? Because we manage our families, we manage our parents, you know what I mean? We manage our spouses, we manage our jobs. It doesn't matter what our title is, right? It's just we are the leaders of our family, of our lives. And I found that for me, in the absence of putting myself first, everyone around me suffered. Everyone
Yeah.
around me suffered, and because I was resentful. And to me, what I've learned is that resentment is usually my friend who helped me said, resentment comes from the French word ressentir, which means to refeel deeply. What was I refeeling deeply? The wound that kept pushing me to keep doing and doing and doing it and not putting myself first and being present for the people in my life. And what I found was when I started giving myself the oxygen, like you said, and filling my cup and nourishing me, then I could nourish. And what I loved, the other thing that you said that I loved that brought me back was when you say, I forget how you said it, but you'll say, like, that was unfair of how I handled that. Or you said something. And I remembered, and you were saying how you feel better. There was this book, one of the self help books I read. I can't remember the author's name, but it's called 52 Esteemable Things. her point was when you do something kind like that, your esteem, you feel good. So, in other words, when I do something where I react and then I immediately acknowledge, like you said, your soul says that was wrong, and you immediately acknowledge, hey, that was not right of me to do or say, you feel good because you see them go, oh, they're not hurting anymore. And it boosts our own esteem when we do esteemable things. So, you reminded me of that. And I find for myself that I live by that now. And the other thing I wanted to say was as I learned my own reactions, right? I call it the cascade. I was able to spot it in others, not in a judgmental way, but I was able to then come at it from compassion when I saw, like, there's times when I'll say something and it might trigger my spouse. Or there's times I'm at work and I'd say something and I could see, there's one employee that, the way she reacts. And I'm able to then go, it seems like you're reacting and I'm not sure what's happening right now, right? And we're able to talk about what's going on. I didn't intend to upset you. So let's talk about it. And rather than what's wrong with you or why did you talk to me like that, right? Which then creates like a riff. It's almost like, okay, there's the compassion there. Now, doesn't mean that they have to know all the things that I know about understanding how my self centered traits affect others and how my fear drives my traits and how I shift my limiting beliefs and how I shift my beliefs. But what it does do is it gives me compassion and understanding. And it helps me come from a place of understanding so that I could foster harmony rather than being sadly for me before, I was the creator of the storm.
It's like I use the word selfish. When someone says you're being selfish, I mean, just pause.
Hmm.
Who is it at that moment who wants something?
Hmm.
Who is it at that moment who's being selfish?
Hmm. Hmm.
I can't give you what I don't have.
Hmm.
I can't give you the time if I'm out of time. I can't give you the energy if I am out of energy. I'm not keeping it because I'm selfish. You're wanting it because you're selfish.
Hmm.
And all of these words that we use, usually when they're being said, I had a guest that her mother would say, be kind,
Hmm.
meant give up what you want so that I feel good. And
Hmm.
I wanted to say, hey, mom, you be kind. I have things I've got to take care of, and you are the one not being kind at this moment. You know,
Hmm.
when we can reflect on the things that are triggering, you go, oh, it isn't all about me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And those words have wounded us
Mhm.
over and over.
Mhm.
Oh, here, you're not taking the time to do blah. Those things you feel less than. And at the moment, you were doing everything you could for you. And they made you feel less than. And then all of a sudden, you're just like, oh, is my life worth living? How much do I have to give?
Mhm.
And okay, I'll do it. Mom, I'll be by. I'll take care of that. Do I say to her, okay, I'm going to have to give up lunch with my friends or dinner with my husband? Or do I have to make them feel guilty?
No.
I try to. Mom, fine, I will be there, but I'm going to have to not go to yoga and da 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 da. Our response is, I want you to feel as bad that I'm taking care of you as you are making me feel right now. But guess what? That's our reaction, our safety, our thing. It's nothing to do with who's being asked. If you set your boundaries and you set the things that when this happens, this is how I'm going to respond. You now have put yourself in the driver's seat of your own life, and you're
Yeah.
not letting everybody else do the driving. I
Well,
let
yeah.
everybody else do the driving for so long.
Yeah, I love that because one of the things that I had to learn about myself was in those situations, I wasn't honest, right?
Yes.
Because what happens? You immediately go, ugh, do I seriously have to do this right now? Like, do you really need me to do this? Right? And fine, I'll do it rather than saying, okay, I want to help. So let's talk about, do you need this right now? Because I always believed everything was urgent. Like
Mhm.
I didn't know how to prioritize and I didn't know how to manage my time. And I thought everything was a hot priority and I had to do 7 things at the same time and then I would sacrifice myself. So when I found my voice and I learned what boundaries meant, it was first just being honest. I have these 3 things right now and I want to help you. So when do you need this by? Right? Do you need me to come right now? Okay, because here's where I'm at. So can it wait? And it's really a negotiation and a conversation. And I found for us, especially those of us who struggle with burnout, right? We just keep layering it and layering it and layering it. And we won't give, honestly, I don't want to say honestly, it's not really give, rather. We won't speak honestly about what's happening. And we expect them to mind read us. And then meanwhile, they can't because we don't say anything because we've conditioned them, I feel, to just
Mhm.
expect. Right. And I kept thinking it was a them problem. My burnout was them. They were expecting, they were asking more. They never understood. They didn't know what I did. And meanwhile, it was a me because I wasn't honest about where I was at and really negotiating and, like you said, setting that boundary, which is I'm not able to do it right now. I don't have the capacity to do it right now. I want to do it. It doesn't mean I don't want to do it. I love what you said about like a mom thing because my mom was bipolar and sadly, she was never diagnosed when she was younger. And so she would get enraged if I said no. I learned not to personalize that. When I realized that was her, it's not me personally because I expressed my truth. I'd calmly sit and listen. And when she was done, I'd say, "Are you done?" Right? And then I would reinforce. I would say, not that I don't want to, it's not that I can't. It's not right now. Let's talk about when. And it really built a bridge in our relationship because I stopped pulling away emotionally. Think about how
Mhm.
many times we mentally divorce our spouses and how we like
Oh, yes.
mentally divorce our families and we want nothing to do with them, but we're the ones isolating ourselves. Right.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah. So to me, boundaries are so important and recognizing how to speak that truth. That also took work because what I saw when I did this self assessment that my friend showed me, and that's what's in my book, what I got to see were my patterns. And I
Yeah.
saw what I did, and then it was like, oh my gosh, like I created a lot of my problem and it wasn't them, and it wasn't an us problem where I wasn't getting the support I needed. It was a me problem. And then once I realized, that I could see, name, and change those things, you bet. I mean, I went on a tear to change it, and then I realized over time, just like most of us, I stopped doing those practices because it's like, okay, check, 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 it's fixed. And what happens? It comes back. And I was back to feeling the same way. And what I've realized now is that it's a commitment to me. And that's what I always say to anyone that I work with, like, what's your life worth? Right? Because when we make that commitment to ourselves, we are there for everybody, and it's to me, that commitment is a 5 minute at the end of the day. It's a 5 minute morning intention. And then it's 1 minute resets throughout the day. We can do this after we
Yeah.
spend the time learning what we need to change, at least in my experience.
Yeah, and honesty is so important, but I also wanna caution that we don't hide behind the word "I'm being honest" so that we can
Mhm.
be cruel, you
Mhm.
know? Honesty is that loving response to what's going on, not that cruel response that I have had many occasions to share.
No,
Try
it's
and
not,
hurt the
yeah. Yeah,
person.
no,
They
it's not
are of
critical.
value. They
Right.
are of value, and how do I respond honestly and honor them?
That's right.
And that is so important because that same anger is how we talk to ourselves.
Yes.
And then we put ourselves down. How many times have you screamed at yourself for, "I can't believe I forgot that."
Yes.
You know what? It's I didn't forget it. I just didn't remember it at the right time.
I made a mistake.
Yeah.
That's it. I made a mistake, and mistakes are okay. That's what I always say to myself. I made a mistake. I'm not
Yep.
bad. Yeah.
Always be
No, I like
kind.
that. Yeah, and that's what I meant in terms of being honest with ourselves, right?
Mhm.
When we're honest with ourselves and then we express it. But I will say, and I loved what you said because sometimes people use honesty as a criticism coming from that bully place inside. what I found though, when I struggled to be honest at first, sometimes it came out sideways, where it would have a little sarcasm or it would come across almost like angry. And, because I was trying to express my truth. So it took me some time to practice, and I had to practice saying these things. So it wasn't like an overnight thing, it was like, because I think we have a tendency to think like, okay, I have to be honest, I'll be honest. Right. And then have you ever said, okay, I'm going to do that? And you do it once and it backfires. Like, okay, I can't be honest. You know what I mean? So what I found is I had to just keep practicing speaking my truth and setting those boundaries. And for me, and I don't know about you, I couldn't say I'm setting a boundary with you because I found that backfired too. Like I need my boundaries and that would create a rift, right? So I found that I had to gently and kindly speak my truth in terms of, like I said before, I want to help and I want to do this. It's not, but not right now. I have this and this and this. Let's negotiate how I can help. Right. And that became better for me. And then there are days when I would get overwhelmed and react because that's really when a lot of the trigger would happen for me. It still does. If I don't speak my truth, I will inevitably trigger and say something that I don't like saying or how I get my tone or something. And then when I reset that, like you said, that was unfair. I'm able to talk it through and get that boundary that I need so that I can show up for everybody and not create any rifts and butt heading with the people in my life.
And boundaries aren't for the other person. You're not changing any
Yeah.
else.
Right.
Boundaries are solely how am I going to respond when this comes up? You
Yes.
can't stop things from coming to you, but you can stop them from going in. And
Correct.
that is what a boundary is. When George shows up drunk at the office, this is how I am going to respond. It's
Hmm.
not, George, you cannot show up drunk at the office anymore. You
Hmm.
can't change him. It's how am I going to respond? And that's kind of, I just made something up. I don't know a George that
Yeah.
does,
Yeah.
but it's that thing. It's next time you're home and you weren't home on time for dinner, you don't get any dinner at all. That's not the way it is. It's how are you going to respond? You know what? I am going to understand that they had something else that came up that they needed to take care of. And it's not, they don't need to be in fear of coming home because of how their spouse or significant other is going to respond. What am I going to respond in loving kindness where people are safe?
Yes. Yes. I know when I was, especially because now I'm a former CEO, I sold my business. But I'd be working late and I always get the phone call, "When are you coming home? When are you coming home?" And it would be the trigger, like, "I'm coming home." What I found though is it was the kind thing was, as you said, the loving and the kind thing was thinking about my spouse, making the phone call and saying, "Hey, things are really going crazy today. I'm not gonna be home for dinner, right? Or I'm gonna be home at 7. Can you dot, 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 right?" And what I found was that that was another kind and loving, thoughtful thing because I found myself in the midst of burnout being thoughtless. Why couldn't
Mhm.
you call me and ask me, right? Why do I have to call you? It's always like the fight, And what it was recognizing the impact of that distortion on others. And all it took was, hey, I just need to call home and having a bit at work, rather than, oh, everyone needs me at work and I can't take a minute to even communicate. So a lot of it for me is that kind, loving, and honest communication that really, to me, just opens the door. It keeps us not only taking care of ourselves, but getting the support that we need. Because once people know where we're at, I've found it's miraculous. They're there for me. But I just have to
Yes.
tell them and I have to let them in.
I love what you said about that because if we can prevent the response,
Hmm.
we are helping ourselves. Do you really want to go home to someone who's frustrated because you didn't call? Why not pick it up? I remember so many times my husband would say, "When are you coming home?" Like, "Oh, just 30 more minutes." And an hour and a half later, I'm still
Yeah.
working. And he's like, "I thought you were going to be home in 30 minutes." And it's like, you're right. I did say that,
Hmm.
but I was on such a roll that
Hmm.
I was getting a lot done when nobody was in the office. You have that. And so I would say, I'd start saying, right now, my plan's 30 minutes, but I don't know, so go on without me.
Mhm.
Or I will bring dinner on my way, you
Mhm.
know? My kids grew up on fast food because mom was always late at the office,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it was the easy way. I loved it. I don't know, wait, this is dating myself, but when Boston Market had those dinners that you could
Yeah,
just
yeah.
swing by, pick up, and it was not really fast food, it was real food.
Get mad.
Then they went out, and I don't know if they even exist anymore, but that was the best because it felt like I was still feeding my kids healthy. But it is, how am I going to show up
Mhm.
for them? And it's not putting yourself out, you are preventing the fire.
Exactly.
It's like if you can prevent it, do it because it's a
Exactly.
lot less energy than cleaning up the fire.
Exactly, and what I had to break through to get to that point, as I said before, was my own resistance. Because I was just stuck in this place of like, why do I have to do everything? And when I realized that if I'm the leader of my life, I have to communicate and I have to let people know where I'm at, right? And when I do, what I get in return is so much bigger. And I will say, I thought that achievement was doing and doing and doing and doing, right? And that performance was the one that was going to be the thing that gave me the fulfillment. It wasn't. Fulfillment for me is the connection, and the
Mhm,
understanding and the kindness and the love and the joy, and the simple things. And it starts with me shifting my perspective, which, as I shared before, how to do. And basically from there, just as I said, honest communication. And then if I make a mistake, it's not beating myself up. It's just acknowledging it and just acknowledging so that it's still not that rift of misunderstanding and frustration, so that it could be like, huh, I made a mistake. It's okay. I admitted it. And I said something unfair and I shouldn't have. And let's move forward and let's connect again. And that to me is what I have found. It's just so important that we have to put ourselves first. And learning how to do it for me was the biggest challenge because I wouldn't prioritize the time. And once I gave myself permission for it, I was able to go for it.
mm,
And then I was able to do it, because and now today I work for it, meaning like I commit to myself every day to do it. And that is what gives me joy and fulfillment today because I'm not in that constant swirl of the tornado is what I felt like. I felt like I whirled
mhm,
in, I whirled out. It was just, always I call it inner churn on the inside. And now I feel
yep.
centered and calm. But it really took for me to get honest with myself that I needed to change. And then it took a commitment to do it. And then it took practice.
Yeah, you can be the eye of the storm. Let
Hmm.
the hurricane go outside of you. It's going to be that moment, and a hurricane goes across, there's that calmness before the wind starts blowing the other direction.
Hmm.
Be the calm.
I love that. Be the
You do not have to be in the storm. It can be all around you. Other people say, be the thermostat, not the thermometer. You get to control that energy. Be the calm. It's you. We don't change other people.
we
We
don't.
might be able to manipulate them. We might be able to get them to do it our way. It's that horse lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can make them do it your way. They're not going to change the way they think. And I would much rather be the calm.
Me too. And I found, as I was saying before, when I finally recognized what those self centered traits look like, Mel Robbins always talks about let them, right? I had
Mhm.
to learn how to let them. And when I recognized that we're all wounded, we're all self centered, we all have triggers, and I learned how to not take things personally, and I could be the calm in that as someone else is reacting, then I could let them. And I didn't have to fix, like you said, and I didn't have to try and change them, right? It was just more about if they're frustrated, let them. And I like that concept. But for me, I had to learn how because I kept taking that stuff personal and making it mine and my own and thinking, oh, I'm responsible for everyone's feelings. No, no, we're not. We can be the calm in that storm and we don't have to wait for life to calm down either. Because I found it would be like, oh, when this calms down, then I'll be calm. When that calms down, then I'll be calm. No, we can be calm in the midst of that swirl that's happening all around us.
The best part about Mel Robbins' book is the let me portion, which
Mhm.
is the most of the book. We can allow other people. Before Mel Robbins, I always knew it as the art of allowing. Allow everybody else their past. I had never heard the let me. The how do I allow myself to be my authentic self? And that authentic self, who I am today, not who I want to be tomorrow, not who I was yesterday, because we change. It's like that's what life is about. Like nature, there's nothing that stays the same. Well, it's the part that I had always missed.
Me too. Me too. I love that. And that's for me the work that I do, which is what I wrote in my book. I created, as I said, a framework. It got me to that same place where I can let me and let them, let
Yes.
me. And that's what I was saying in terms of like that honest communication, because I'm not taking responsibility for your disappointment anymore. You know, I'm able to really speak my truth.
Oh, Tracy, this has been so much fun, and I think we could talk for another hour, but I'm sure our friend is going like, "Okay, I need to go back to work now." But at the same time, this has been so much value. You have got so much wisdom and experiences to share. I'm so thankful that you took the time to write a book to share it with everybody. I would love to hear a little bit about your work, what you do today, and how we could get a hold of you if it's like, "Oh my gosh, I think Tracy would be the perfect person to be in my life." And then your book, where do we find it?
Yeah, so the book is called Life Storms Finding Your Clear Sky. And people always ask why that name. So, life storms is what we just talked about, the daily churn that we live with. And finding your clear sky is how do you shift your perspective and stay centered in the storm. It's on Amazon, and I know how busy we all are. So, I made sure we had an Audible so people can listen to it and not have to sit down and read it. So, it's on Amazon in 4 formats. But, if what I talked about makes sense, or if you read the book, you're going to learn about a framework that I talked about called the Aurora Method. I created the Aurora Method Academy because, as I said, I had to learn how to do these things. It didn't come natural to me. So I put a course together. So my website's tracydoyle.life. And if you'd like, set up a one on one with me. We can talk about what it's all about because I'm offering a free cohort actually for women I don't want people to feel like they don't have the money to put themselves first. So I'm doing a free cohort. So schedule a one on one with me and we'll talk to see if it's right for you.
Ah, that's beautiful. All right. So the fun question, that one thing, out of all the things we talked about, what is that one thing that I should try this week to see if it can help me release some of that burnout?
My favorite is the 1 minute reset. We all talk about breath work, but for me, the most impactful was what was I breathing in and what was I letting go? And then affirming what I'm doing. For me, it's I'm breathing in, I'm centered and I'm calm. I'm breathing out my stress or my frustration. And I say, I'm centered, I am calm, and I'm handling it.
Yeah. And write the words down and try them. And if you want to switch them up because it feels better to you, switch them up, but
Mm,
start somewhere. So say
yeah.
the words one more time.
I am centered, I am calm, and I am handling it.
Simple. And so when I imagine bringing in the light from everywhere and the calm and then
Yep,
letting go of that crap.
yep,
When I do my resets, because it works.
it does.
You can do it in the car. You can do it in the grocery store line. You
The
can do it at
bathroom.
your office. You can do it in the middle of the boardroom. It doesn't matter. All you're taking is that moment of breathing in the calm, letting out the storm,
Mhm.
and you can do it. This is beautiful. Thank you so much, Tracy, for your
Thank you,
wisdom,
Laura.
for taking the time to be with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank
Friend,
you.
you're welcome. Friend Tracy and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals. We are here to shine a light on your path to help you go where you are going. But do follow the advice of your doctors and your therapists. Thank you for joining and have a beautiful day.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Laura Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.